UFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Hush now, city kids, gather round for other mints. Hush now, city kids. When it came to me after so long, I didn't have no choices in the streets where I was from. When I think about the pain, I didn't have no choices, I took what I had sworn. Hush now, city kids, gather round for rubbing mints. Hush now, city kids. But you know, they wouldn't let you have it any other way.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the fans forum and a chock-a-block forum tonight, and Magnus is in the waiting room. We'll bring Magnus in when it's his turn to speak. He had to go out and he's having mic issues, but we'll bring him back in once we've heard from Tom, who's going to drop out and then come back in for the second half of the show. He's at an airport on an international flight, but he sounds okay, so we'll bring him in very, very soon. But George, we will start with you, mate. Newcastle United, another home defeat. Now, amazingly, lost more home games than they have away games this season, George. I made a point last night on the professionals. You were in the chat. I know you were watching. I wasn't massively critical of Newcastle because, I was at the game. I looked at the stats as well when I went home just to make sure that what I saw was, wasn't as bad as some people on social media were trying to make out. Yes, it was a defeat. It's disappointing losing games against teams like Fulham, but anybody can beat anybody in the Premier League. Newcastle, for me, didn't take their chances at the weekend, and it wasn't the worst performance of the season. We played in fits and starts. We were 1-0 up for me, but ultimately, some players were tired. Maybe some players have been playing injured. Joe Linton, of course, walking around with a leg brace on his leg at this moment in time. Talk of him potentially having played through the pain barrier for the last 3 games. Newcastle not having a bench strong enough now to be able to change things. Strong bench, but not in the attacking formation positions because Barnes and Callum Wilson are injured and Miggy's now gone. So I just wanted to have a little bit of clarity when I got to him, and I watched the game again, and you know what? We could have won that game on a different day. The chances go in. Newcastle win. They win it 3-2, or they win it 4-3, or they get a point, which is what I'd predicted last week. I said that this would be a difficult game, and Newcastle would probably get a draw. But you know what? I just think it's been again another overreaction. It was nowhere near as bad as Bournemouth, although at the end of the day, for me, it was the same result. It was a defeat. It was disappointing. But when everything settled down over the weekend, George, for me as well, look, a lot of teams played each other at the weekend. We haven't lost a massive amount of ground on teams in and around us. It's tightened things up. Chelsea could go above us. We could be in 6th by the end of the night. But you know what? I wasn't too disappointed. I really wasn't, George. What about you?
Well, the football sense I was because of the way we played. I want to mention 2 things before I start to talk about the game. One, I think it's appropriate for the fans to say condolences to Alan Shoulder's family because he gave us a lot of pleasure while he was playing, and to remind people of the history. Alan Shoulder became famous because of Blythe Spartans FA Cup run, and they got to a non-league side, got to the 6th round, and they had their 5th replay at St James's Park. And after that, Newcastle gave them a professional contract. Now, the FA have taken any chance of that happening again because they've took away replays, which is ridiculous. And the other thing I wanted to say was the racial abuse about Willock. If anybody out there knows who it was, for God's sake, tell the club so we can get them out of the club altogether. Just suspend them, sine die. No second chances. Out they go. Okay, now I'll talk about the football. I mean, in fairness, most of the lads on here were saying we expected a difficult game, and Darren and I had quite a big conversation before the match about how difficult we thought it would be. But I have to say, I still thought, as I usually say to you lads, if the right Newcastle turns up, we'll beat anybody. Well, on Saturday, the right Newcastle didn't turn up. There were some awful performances and schoolboy errors. I mean, the number of times Lewis Hall went towards a ball and stopped halfway so that the Fulham winger had a clear run instead of a 50-50 was appalling. And then 2 big centre-backs letting the ball bounce. For God's sake, I can hear my school teacher saying, don't let it bounce. For God's sake, get something on it. Doesn't matter where it goes. And yet I had to let the ball bounce and bang, Fulham ran through the middle and left them started. And then when your star player, who is Tunali, starts to play suicide balls, you know you're in trouble. And it was one of his suicide balls that created the equaliser. He played a square ball to Bruno that never got there. It was never going to get there. And that was not the first square ball he played. He'd done it about half a dozen times before to other players. So I'm in a football sense, I'm disappointed because I've seen players who 3 weeks ago looked like world beaters suddenly behaving like very poor schoolboys, and that disappoints me greatly. I find it interesting and amusing that having trolled the Sunday papers as I do every weekend, to find that quite a few of the papers had Jacob Murphy as the man of the match, which I thought was quite amusing. But then he put the hard work in. He only did the hard yards and he scored the goal. Isak as well, great player. Probably is already a world-class striker. But we've had used to strikers who didn't get much help, but made things happen. In a game like that, Shearer would have made something happen. Even going further back, Tudor, McDonald, McGarry would have made something happen. Yet, for me, Isak was happy to feed off scraps. Well, that was a bit sad as well. So it isn't the end of the world, but from a football sense, I hope you understand what I'm saying. From a football sense, when I analyse what happened, there's so many things went wrong on Saturday. I was just about tearing my hair out. Dare I say throw-ins again, boys? I wonder what our coaches do. When we win a throw-in, notice, in our half, that's supposed to be an advantage. Every single throw-in we got, within 20 seconds, Fulham was shooting on our goal. I mean, do they not do anything about throw-ins and training? I really do. It just depresses me with all the money that's floating around that somebody can't do something simple with that. So, yeah, it isn't the end of the world, but there's so many little things which, in a football sense, got up my nose. It was difficult to stomach, to put it mildly. The other thing is, back to something we talked about, I think, last time and on other platforms this week, is that 80 minutes and with 3 rows in 19-2 empty in front of me and Steve Hasty. So there's a thing happening at the moment, which is a bit depressing. But we've got to write it off. It's over and done with. I mean, I've heard people saying, well, maybe the Mainz was on Wednesday. Well, that drives me crazy as well. They've got no bloody right to have the Mainz on Wednesday when they're playing on Saturday. They've only got one job, that's Saturday. For God's sake, they paid all that money to do their job when it's there. So Mine's on Wednesday. It doesn't wash with me, I'm afraid. However, I'm still positive enough and optimistic enough to believe that we'll come through on Wednesday. I think we might have a squeaky bum time odd times, but I still think we'll do enough to get through. And if the right Newcastle turns up, we'll get through without any problem. But I'm looking forward to Wednesday. It's going to be a great night, and I hope it's one of our best nights for a long time. So that's me, Steve.
Okay, Magnus, can we just do a quick sound check with you, just so you're not wasting your time? Go on. You okay?
Yeah, can you hear me all right, or?
Perfect, mate. Yep, that's spot on. We'll come to you in due course, then. That's fine. Alan, good evening. Thoughts on the game of the weekend?
Gave it two halves for me, Steve. First half, very even possession-wise, but we had the better chances. I have to laugh, and Darren won't like it, but I thought Murphy was our best player by a country mile, to be honest. Basically, I think teams are starting to work well, lads. I think they're putting the pressure on. As soon as Fulham came out, I'm still waiting for Newcastle to come out the changing rooms in the second half, because they just pressurised with on the balls from the off in the second half, and we couldn't handle it. That's the second game in a row. I agree what you're saying, Steve, about like being a difficult game. I thought we'd win 2-1, but it would be a tough game. But the thing, mentality-wise, George, you heard it a couple of weeks ago by saying the lads in the 50s were up for the cup and not the league. Well, what's changed in 75 years? You've just hit a point there about them concentrating cup game on. Nothing's changed. That's a small club mentality. Steve's hit it on the head on Friday when I heard him say, I think we'll get a draw. Now, that to me shows it's in our DNA that we're thinking it's going to be tough. Liverpool don't think like that. Man United in the past wouldn't have thought like that. Arsenal certainly don't think like that at this present day. We must get out of this small club mentality.
But that was me. That was me, Alan. It wasn't Eddie Howe. It wasn't the players.
No,
that was me. That was me looking at the form book and looking at it and saying, I looked at it and said, Fulham have got a good away record. They've won 4, but prior to the game, they'd won 4, drawn 4, lost 3. And I looked at that, and they're averaging 2 goals away from home every away game, Alan. And that's why I went for a 2-2 draw. There was no it wasn't like unlogical to suggest that it was going to be a tougher game, but I just genuinely think we didn't have the options on the bench, Alan.
I like your stats, Steve, as you know.
You do.
And basically, the 4 teams we've been beaten off this year, only West Ham, over our history of our club, have we got a better record. Brighton have beat with more times. Bournemouth are equal in our history. And Fulham are only 1 game behind. We've won 34 against their 33. And yet the fans come into the attitude of the game. We should beat these teams. And this is my point with George. Over the last 75 years, we've got this small... And it rubs off in our DNA, Steve, because we'll all be nervous wrecks before the game on Wednesday, when really we should be super confident. We're 2-0 up for the semi-final, and we're all thinking it's going to be squeaky bum time. And really, we should have the confidence to go there and wipe the floor with Arsenal, even though they've beaten Man City 5-1.
Now, I'm more confident about the game on Wednesday than I was about this game at the weekend. I don't think we'll lose the game on Wednesday. I think we'll probably draw Wednesday. I think it'll be a 1-1. But I don't think we'll crash out of the semi-final. I think we'll get through and we'll be at Wembley. But the Fulham game was completely different. It's the game that we do seem to struggle to win these, but it's a strange one. It's a strange one, Alan. I get it. It's that Stockholm syndrome we've talked about many times. Mitch brought it up for the first time on here, but that shouldn't affect the dressing room. It shouldn't affect the players. But we always knew a month between these 2 games is always going to bring a different Arsenal to the table and a different Newcastle to the table. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. It's football. It's typical of Newcastle, but it'll also be typical of Newcastle to win 2 or 3-0 against a team that's just beaten, Manchester City by 5 goals to 1 at the weekend. I am confident. I am obviously aware we've got a lot of people on, so we want to look ahead to the Arsenal game tonight as well. So, Pablo, I'll come to you whilst you've got light.
You 3 lads in front of me have pretty much nailed it. Fulham to me is always a 50-50. You know, it's on the flick of a coin. I don't think it raised any eyebrows to anyone that got beat by them. If we'd have beat them, we wouldn't have raised any more eyebrows. It's one of them that it's on a knife edge really. And we definitely had the chances to take control of the game. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, any other given day, we could have been 2-3-1 up at any point. We were just not clinical enough. What it obviously highlights is what you lads have said, is that we do not have, and this is no slight on Eddie Howe, by the way, we don't have a plan B in the shape of personnel. The only changes we can effectively ever make are in midfield. You know, that's it. And the obvious one for me that stood out for a couple of weeks, obviously going to Southampton last week, was why, I mean, maybe there is a different motive behind it, but why isn't Botman in instead of Byrne? Because as much as I like Dan Byrne, the last 2-3 games for me, he's looked a bit iffy. You know, he's looked a yard or two off, and some of the decision making maybe not the best. So maybe he is saving Botman for the big one. You know, like George said, we don't want to look forward to a game, but you know, that is our most important game in X amount of years. You know, so I'm hoping that's what's going on there. It's just one of them, mate. Fulham, I was disappointed on the day. I'm hormonal today with regards our recruitment, but I'm not going to go into that. We don't have time. But I just think I think we're treading water again. We've got into that kind of notion of we'll turn up for 30 minutes in a game, we'll press like hell, we'll look decent again, then we're dropping off again. And I thought we were getting to the point where we were getting out of that rhythm. Thought we were actually able to manage a game all the way through, but it seems to have crept back in the last couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks for me. So again, disappointing, mate. But I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I wasn't going any home game for Newcastle United fans. We've turned up against some big teams this year. So Alan's right in what he says. We should be going with the mentality, certainly at home, that we can beat anyone. You know, we should be at least impressing that upon teams. But Fulham, we've got to give Fulham credit. You know, they've got a shrewd manager, Marco Silva. He's a bit of a wily fox. You know, and they've come up and almost done a number on us where, you know, they've caught us on the off a couple of times. So I think we've just got to move on, take the medicine, and really focus on Wednesday night. I hope to hell he plays Botman, because I disagree with you, Steve. I think we could be torn apart if we don't get it right on Wednesday.
Okay, Botman did start, of course, in the fixture at Arsenal just under a month ago. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I questioned whether he might bring Nick Pope in as well for this one. Certainly, if the game went to penalties, I wouldn't be surprised to see Nick Pope come in. But Eddie's got some decisions to make. It depends on who's injured as well. Joe Linton, of course. Is it kidology, or is he in that brace for a reason? Is Tino Livramento going to be replaced by Trippier if Trippier's even here? Lots to be decided before Wednesday. Jeff, good evening. Thoughts on this weekend's game against Fulham?
Well, I think it's been pretty well covered already as to, you know, the flow of the game, as it were. What's worrying me is I think we've appointed a set piece coach.
We did.
Yeah. Since then, we can't get the corners past the first man. We keep losing possession from throw-ins. It's like the good old days where we never retained. You know, it's like going back to Mike Ashley's days where throw-ins were just, let them have the ball back. So I don't know. Also, who is going to take, if Trips is off, which appears to be the case, who's going to take our set pieces? We don't seem to have a good set piece specialist. Gordon can't do everything. I know he plays left, right, and in the centre if necessary, but he we need to have a set piece specialist in the club who can put the ball where it's needed to go. So that's been my main concern. And like everyone else, I'm stunned by the lack of backlift in the strikers these days. This, the shot Tonali pulled out of nowhere. It makes it very difficult to defend because you just don't see it coming. And yeah, that about covers it from my point of view, unless you want to talk about the hair.
No, your hair looks great, Jeff. Magnus. Magnus.
Yeah, I've got lots actually, Steve. Lucky. Yeah.
You've got more than me, mate.
Happy New Year,
Magnus, the man, going from a man with a beard to a man with a bigger beard. Magnus, your thoughts on that match of the weekend?
I mean, it did feel like night and day, first half and second half. I thought we really put the pressure on them right from the start. It was a good sort of exciting first 30 minutes. However, for some reason, we're not holding it out anymore, and we also had a bit of good chapter in second half in the situation 1-1. I mean, the positives are probably Gordon and Murphy. They didn't have a bad game. Tonali has had better games. However, it's a fine margin. It was a 50-50 match, and it didn't go our way. We weren't clinical enough. I mean, we were only 2 crossbar shots away from winning the game. I'm not going to get too disheartened by this, and I still feel like the substitutions were not really well timed or effective enough. I think Lewis Miley has shown us enough to be number 1 in the packing order, regardless of. Willock was unlucky to miss that shot. First, I thought he stepped over the ball. He was just unlucky. It could have totally been a different story if he did hit the target or hit the ball. But it happens. We all have those days, and I am not too worried about the next game because there seems to be no issue in motivating the team for the so-called bigger clubs, and. The problem probably is that there's fewer of them, and we have to beat everybody else. We have to beat what's in front of us, and I'm not going to get too disheartened. It's still was it 2 losses I'm going to have to look at the big picture. 2 losses since the beginning of December. Upwards and onwards. We not get too low when we lose, and not get too high when we win. I think it's good to get the game so quick. Against Arsenal, and I think there will be no problem motivating the guys for that game.
Yeah, lots of people talking about Trippier. Yeah, it's just a rumour and a story that's floating around at the minute. Nothing confirmed. I mean, hopefully we don't lose anybody else. Even Matt Targett, the links with Longstaff Target, going out of the club. Nothing's really come, and time is ticking. So nothing else other than Lloyd Kelly, of course, who's already gone to Juventus, and obviously Miley left the club along with Miggy Almiron. So hopefully nobody else goes before the end of deadline day, but certainly nobody coming in at this moment in time. Martin, transfer deadline day. We're still talking about the game at the weekend, though. It's like a therapy session this on a Monday. It's always good to talk about the defeat.
Do you know what it is? Anybody that looked at my Twitter Friday night, I predicted a Fulham 2-1 win and Jimenez to score.
You did?
Because it was just, you could see it there 100 miles away. I thought with the game, kind of to a degree, what the lads said, that maybe the first 10-15, I thought we were okay. But I thought we were, from defence through the midfield, I thought we were sloppy with the ball all match. I thought we were poor with our passing thought. And I think where was the desire? We didn't seem up for it at all. And I think as a club, if we've got ambitions, we've got to be beating teams like those. And listen, I know we got rattled off Bournemouth. I like their manager a lot. They're set up well. They're playing really, really well. Fulham, for me, are a more beatable team. I know they've got a good record of scoring in a game, in particular away from home. But we should be beating them. Like, we've a much better midfield than they have. And we didn't dominate. We didn't put our 3 guys in the middle of the park and say, this is our patch, this is home. Come and take it if you want it. And we didn't do that. And I think Joe Linton was maybe carrying a knock, but I think he's been poor for the last few games. I think he should have been changed up. I think where we struggle at times as well, when we go behind, as much as I love Bruno as a player, I'm sorry, he's not a captain and not a leader. He's not what Shearer was. He's not what a Warren Barton was. He's not what a David Batty was. We don't have, when the going gets tough, that lad that's going around the likes of Shaw and Byrne and these other players and going, lads, pull your socks up. What are you doing with that pass? You don't ever see anybody kind of taking a grip and going, get a hold of it, lads. What are you doing? Why are you passing that sideways, Tonali? What are you thinking about? So for me, I think that's the last few games I've watched. I know, listen, we were on a good streak, but I think there's also been lots of disappointing factors in the last 2 games, particularly at home. And I think they need to be addressed, and that has to come from Eddie and the coaching staff. The other piece for me with the game on Saturday is, and I know probably I might get hopped on, but I think Howe's choice of game management, in-game management at times is shocking. And he doesn't make the right choice at times. He doesn't make it at the right time, and he doesn't get the messages out there to affect the game in play. And that, for me, is still a concern with him as a manager. And I know some will go, oh, it's all about how. Listen, I'm not how in, how out either way. What I am is a realist, and we need to be able to affect the game either with players, and if we don't have the bench, he or Tyndall, whoever, has to be able to affect the game in play through management. And I haven't seen that this season. I haven't seen us change it up, change the style, change the formation, do anything different. And it bugs the absolute crap out of us, because I wonder when it's going to come. So I thought we didn't deserve to win the game. I thought on Saturday, I thought we were poor. Isak, listen, first half Murphy threw in some great balls there, and it is about, I said last week there's a good link up between those 2 lads, and Isak will have games where he doesn't score, and if that's the case, where do the goals come from? Midfield need to step up, defense need to step up. We're throwing in corners and balls. Tonali is a set piece expert, was for Milan, is for Italy. Sure, we don't even let him touch it. Why not? We just stick to the same routine. It's a bit crazy at times. So I'd like to see better game management. I'd like to see a bit more rotation of free kicks, corners. If we've brought in a set piece coach, great. But like with the height we've got in defence, if you've got Botman coming back in, Arsenal will trouble us on Wednesday night. I know we're going to talk about that. But they're great at set pieces. They've got the height. Their defenders score goals. We need to be starting to get goals to win more games throughout the team. And I think that has to be a focus, along with sometimes looking at the opponent, looking at the game, and changing it up, changing the formation, bring a player on that you can change it to 4-4-2 or whatever you want to do. I think, Alan made a point. I think sometimes teams are finding us out and we stick to this 4-3-3 and we don't do nothing. And I think we'll have to change it. So I think there's some big choices and some big opportunities in coming games, because after that cup semi-final game, we've still got some tough bloody games to come. And I think, we've weakened the squad. We haven't done anything. And I think, we've got to make change, because we are getting sussed out at times. Isak won't score every single game, and we need to manage the game better. And I'm not seeing that at the moment. So I thought it was very disappointing on Saturday.
Well said, Martin. Good opinions. When Darren rubs his chin, you know he's ready for a rant. Darren, you're rubbing your chin. Was it the fact that somebody mentioned that Murphy was man of the match?
That just probably peed us on, to be fair. Murphy was shocking. Yes, he scored a goal, but he offers nothing at all on the right-hand side. He doesn't know what to do, doesn't know what to take a man on. Everything was down Gordon's side. You see him, all the pundits are out. But like Dan Burn was shocking. He cannot win for the defender who can't win a header in his own box. Shouldn't be played. So I would drop him on Wednesday 100%. Everybody's saying bring I know we've got plenty of midfield players, but we've got no fresh faces. I think it's going to get worse before it gets bad. Before it gets good, sorry. Arsenal's going to be hard. I think, yes, it's going to be a hard game. Can we win it? Yes. But I think it's kind of mentality. It's a fan's opinion. Eddie Howe wants to win every game. It's fans' opinion mentality. We all said Fulham will be a hard game. It's not going to be a walk in the park. We're going we all know our own squad. Like I said, even Bournemouth all knew it was going to be a hard game. But Newcastle's not guaranteed to win every game. Yes, we want to win every game, but something we are going to lose in football. Isak, he's unlucky with the crossbar. But Joe Linton, mind you, he was lucky not to be sent off for that game. The referee could have booked him earlier on. And I think the fifth foul, he warned him, and then he went a foul again. So, like, I'm sorry, Joe Linton needed to kick the all because his mentality is to foul quick. The referee kept warning not to foul. And before he got booked, the referee said, one more, you're getting booked. And he done it to him later on, you know what I mean? So Joe Linton's got to, if he's injured, it's unlucky, but it might be a blessing because you might bring Joe Wilt against us because he played good against us all the time. Like say a defence, I know Lewis Hall had an okay game. Tino had a good okay game. Like Dan Burn, I was watching on corners. He just watched his man go past him, and he's quick. He went and missed a few times. We're drawing 1-1. He's in their half. Get back, defend where you're meant to be. We're not winning 3-4-0. What you doing in playing centre forward for? And like the crowd was kicking up. He got booked. He kicked the kid in the head. The other way around, we were on the yellow cover that on us. So I would drop Dan Burn and say the worrying thing is Murphy's got no competition. So that's how bad Newcastle are on the right hand side. Murphy starts every game, and that's worrying for me. So that's my rant of the way, Steve.
Okay, Kevin, where did it go wrong on Saturday?
All over the place, to be honest. I thought it was sloppy. Martin stole my thunder a little bit. The retention of ball was pretty crap, to be fair. Fulham were more physical. They wanted it more. Looked like they had something to fight for. But from goalkeeper all the way to Isak, I thought we were pretty dismal. It was. I
think we're doing better.
Well, my opinion. So hold on.
Sorry.
I thought, yes, sideways and back a little bit. I thought the midfield got overran. I thought their left-sided centre-half was the best player on the park, even better than Jacob Murphy, because I thought he man-marked Isak out the game. Bassi, I think the lad's called. I thought he was wonderful. If you want to go and buy a left centre-half, go and have a look at him and see how much he's worth, because I thought he was brilliant. But outside of that, I thought there was not the substitutions were interesting, but again, I understand the lack of depth, but again, it's the quality within, like, again, Stephen Martin's thunder a little bit and jumping off of that is how can you change it with the players that you have on the field? Can you, on the park, can you go to a 4-2-3-1? Can you change it in some way that will influence them versus them influencing us? Look, yes, we hit the bar twice, all the above, but he has to, I do it myself. You sit there and you see him with his bloody 5-coloured pen that he has from back in the 90s sitting there drawing on his pad. Well, I would love to know what's on his pad because, again, he's not changing it until the 70th, 80th minute when we're 2-1 down chasing games. Can he be more very proactive to actually go and win the game while we're winning 1-0? Can he change it at half time? Can he give some influence in those moments versus going into being reactive? He needs to be a bit more proactive with his tactics or whatever that looks like. But the thing that really stuck for me was, I mean, Magnus, I not disagreeing with you, but in terms of a technique for a professional footballer to miss a football from 3 yards out with your dominant foot, not to put the ball on target. I'm sorry. You have to have a big hard look at yourself to how you missed that opportunity, because that should be a goal, and that's 2-0 or whatever it was at the time, and then you control the game. Then you can start doing whatever you want to do from a tactical standpoint. But again, overall, it was just the lack of it seems like the lack of one, and I'm not gonna. But there's a lot of media outlets and others and this and that about tiredness. You had a week to prepare for this, lads. Yeah. You had a full week to prepare. You're professional footballers. This is your damn job. I mean, all of us on this panel give you right arm to run around for 90 minutes and do whatever you have to do to get results. and that didn't happen. It looked like factions within the group were doing it, within the team were trying, you could say, to run around and Dan Burn kicking people in the head and whatever. You know, not that it's a good thing, but it's not sure. It just showing effort and a bit of care, but it just didn't come across that way. I mean, I would prefer is in what I do is have a game every other day, have a game every 1, 2 or 3 days, because then you keep within your recoveries and you're going again. Yes, so you might look at it and say, oh well, we've got injuries, all that crap, but the scientific side of the game now is there's a better recovery process and better recovery period for players. With medical things, but yeah, I think I'm not buying the fitness and tiredness. I'm not buying that at all. I'm sorry, you're on 100 grand a week, whatever it is, you should run through brick walls every game. And then Eddie Howe's even said it when he first started: empty yourself. Okay, then, well, empty yourself. Then you prepare again, and then you go again and do it again. So that was probably the biggest thing, and that is the full ethos of Eddie Howe he wants to play, and it wasn't there Saturday. So he's got big decisions to make for Wednesday. I'm like you, Steve. I'm very confident about going in for the most part, going into the game against Arsenal. I watched them against Man City. Yeah, they were brilliant. They played Man City off the park for, well, back end of the 30 minutes when they scored third and fourth. And Man City were poor across on the day, but I'm not worried. I think there should be a lot more pragmatism. I think it will be a bit more negative. I don't think it'll be all out. I think it'll just be we'll sit in 2-0 lead and defend a 2-0 lead like we would in the second half. But he's got to get it right, and it all depends on his starting 11. And I wish him well, because I haven't got a clue who he's going to go with.
Okay, Ian, never easy to go last, mate. You've drawn the short straw tonight, but everyone's got an opinion about a win, a loss, or a draw at Newcastle. It was another defeat at the weekend. You've heard everyone's opinions, mate. Where do you sit?
I think we generally win or lose games in the midfield, and the midfield didn't turn up. That was my thought on it. Really, they sort of managed to bypass our midfield, but we didn't help ourselves. Is Joe Linton injured? Because he doesn't look right. I don't know. Like he just looks way off the mark, and Bruno and Sandro weren't at the best, you know. So I think all straight through the middle we were terrible. So, like the two centre backs had an awful game as well, and it just thought they all just had a really rubbish game at the same time. I think is the honest truth of it. Whether they had their eye on Wednesday night or whether they didn't take it seriously, or whether it was just a shit day at the office. You know, it's one of them things, or a combination of them. For me, you know, obviously Willock took some abuse, which is unacceptable, completely unacceptable. So I'm not going to go in too hard on him, but I don't think Willock is the player that he was a few seasons ago. I think for me, when he brought Willock on instead of bringing Miley on, I thought that's a mistake. He should have brought Miley on. Miley's got a lot more to his game. Willock just does not. It just doesn't seem right. And when he missed that open goal, I was just like, I could see it coming. You know, he's shot for confidence, I think, and he shouldn't be anywhere near the first team. Yeah, it was just pretty rubbish. I can't really say much more than the other lads have said. Yeah, that's it. Really, I don't think anyone can. There's not a player on the pitch who really deserves any accolades. For me, it was just really, really poor day at the office. So yeah, that's about all I've got to say on it, Steve.
Okay, well, Newcastle do play the semi-final this week, Wednesday, second leg, 2-0 up, of course, 8 o'clock live coverage, and it's a big game, biggest game of the season so far. Newcastle, of course, missing Jamal Lascelles, who is still injured. Harvey Barnes won't return. There's a doubt over Joe Linton. Callum Wilson has returned to training, but it's not clear if he'll be involved. As for Arsenal, well, Gabriel Jesus, Bukayo Saka and Ben White will all be unavailable. But Arsenal have successfully appealed against the red card shown to Miles Lewis-Skelly against Wolves. which wipes out the suspension that would have had him sidelined. The referee for the game on Wednesday is Simon Hooper, who's becoming a regular at St James's Park. He's fourth match in charge of a Newcastle fixture this season, and VAR is John Brooks. It's live on Sky Sports, and should the aggregate score be a draw after 90 minutes, an additional 30 minutes will be played before a penalty shootout. An additional substitute can be used during extra time. Interesting on the bookings as well. Were Newcastle to reach the final, no player bans would be imposed as a result of accumulated bookings. Only the rerun of a Premier League card misfortune that befell Nick Pope 2 years ago would result in any suspensions. As for the away fans, well, they have sold their ticket allocation of 4,883, so it will be a full house on Wednesday night. Arsenal come off the back of a 5-1 win over Manchester City. So, Ian, going to give you first bite of the cherry on this one, mate. What changes would you like to see in personnel? And give us your feelings on how you think the night will go, and your prediction as well.
Depending on obviously fitness, if I'd say what I said before. I think there's something up with Big Joe. So I would say Joe Linton out, bring Miley on. There's someone commented saying Miley's not taking the game by the scruff of the neck when he comes on, but he's only getting 8 or 10 minutes. When he's bringing him on in the 80-odd minute, you can't expect him to do anything with that amount of time. For me, anyway. So I would say take Cher out. Cher can't head a ball. I've never seen a centre back as poor at heading in my life. Like he can't head a ball. Take Cher out and bring Botman back in, and I think that solves a few of the problems at the back for me. I know he had a poor game not long ago, but I think he's done enough since he's come back from injury to show that when he plays, we look a better team. That's it. Apart from that, I'd keep everything the same. I don't think there's a lot more changes we can really make that would be effective. But if Joe Linton's not fit, don't play him. There's no point in having him wandering around kicking people on one leg.
Mm-hmm. All right, prediction?
Saying all that I've said, I think that we always turn up against, let's say, the big six teams. And I actually agree with, I think you said before, Steve, about a draw, but I think it'll be 2-2.
2-2. Okay. Kevin, over to you.
Like I said earlier, it's going to be difficult. We've got injury potential issues with Joe Linton. If he's unavailable, I wouldn't even contemplate putting Joe Willock in there. I'll go Miley. I'll play him in there. You could even, because with the pace possibly they have down that right side, you could even put Botman in there and play and take out Byrne, because he looks like he's treading water, running in treacle. For the most part, because of the pace element with them playing over the top. But again, the key area of the pitch is going to be the midfield. Looks like Odegaard's back in some fine form, pulling and dictating. But it's going to be a difficult one because we're halfway there to get to a final, and again, we always say that it's a mentality. Yes, you can put anybody on the park, but it's your mentality approaching the game. You can put a bunch of strangers together, and just if you got the mentality right, you're going to probably get a result. So you have to approach it as if this is the final. This is the hardest game to get to before the final. The final is the big dance. So you got there, but this is the bigger one. So again, we'll have to see. We'll have to see in terms of his choice in the midfield area, but you can probably see him keeping the same three, rinse and repeat across the whole park, which would be unfortunate because I think it needs a little bit of refresh, some injection of energy. You could even go Kieran Trippier down that right hand as a right fullback, because I thought Tino was pretty poor this past weekend. So again, there's a lot of different areas and a lot of different places where you could not fully swap and change, but what threats Arsenal have. But then we have to sort of approach the game to what threat we're going to give Arsenal. But I think it's going to be a very nail-biting 1-1 draw.
Nail biting 1-1 draw. Okay, Darren, what would you change on Wednesday night against Arsenal? And let's have a prediction at the end of it as well.
I would play Botman and I would drop Dan Burn 100%. I would play Shaw. I think Botman and Shaw plays better together. And I would drop, even if Joe Linton was fit, I would drop Joe Linton. I'd play Joe Willock. I think the Arsenal game is too big for him to lose, Miley. That's my opinion. I think Joe Willock could probably do a job against. He always plays good against Arsenal. So I would play Joe Willock, and then the rest of the team, Gordon, and then my mate Murphy and Isak up front, and then but we're just gonna concentrate on ourselves, not in trying not to worry about them too much. We need to play a normal game, defend and attack, and then I'm sure the crowd will be up for it, because the one on Saturday, Steve, you know that the crowd was very quiet.
It's terrible.
So under the lights, the crowd will be really up for it. So I've gone for a 1-0 win. That's my prediction.
Okay, that's more confident than I thought you would be. So that's interesting. All right, Martin, what's your feelings on this? Would you make wholesale changes? I mean, I'm mooted that potentially Pope might sneak back in after 2 home defeats. Dubravka again, you know, I've said this a few weeks back. I'm not sure whether you were on the panel, but I said a few weeks back, you know, Dubravka hasn't suddenly become a great keeper overnight. And again, yeah, you can't blame him, but I've just got a feeling that Pope might sneak back in on Wednesday, you know.
He might, if his head is around looking at the game from the weekend from Arsenal's point, they're scoring goals, you know. Odegaard is coming back into form. I think, you know, Mark Byers put a note up there before. You nullify our midfield, you win the game. It's as simple as that. If our midfield doesn't operate, we get beat. So it's that change. If Joe Linton is out, and maybe I'm going off on a complete tangent here, but I wouldn't go 4-3-3 on Wednesday night. I would go 4-2-3-1. And I would play Isaac up. I would play William. I would play Osula on the right-hand side and take Murphy out. Put him on the bench. I would play Osula on the right with the ability to cut in from that right-hand side with the left foot. But what it does, I think he'll probably... I think defensively, I think he'll leave it the same. If he does switch in, I don't think he'll start Botman. But listen, you wouldn't know with Eddie. He could well do. I think midfield, if Joe Linton's out, the obvious choice, I think he brings Longstaff straight in. I don't think he goes with Miley. I think he brings Longstaff straight back in.
Yeah.
Because I think that's his preferred choice, unfortunately. Is the game too big for Miley? Listen, you know, Steven Gerrard started the game for Liverpool when he was what age? Yeah.
You've got to get them in.
Beckham started for Man United when he was what age? So, you know, this whole, is the game too big? I'm sorry, I don't buy that. You're either a baller or you're not.
Yeah. Miley in the Champions League as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So there is options. But yeah, so I would change it up, and I think with my thought kind of around the Osula on the right piece is, if Arsenal are starting to kind of get into it, or we go a goal down, it'll be interesting to see where we go. But that 4-2-3-1, you could then bring Murphy on. You could change up the structure, and you could go 4-4-2 and give them something defensively extra to think about with Isak and Osula. So you could bring Isak slightly back and play him as a 10, which he does very well with Gyökeres when they play for Sweden. Mm-hmm. And you could leave Osula sitting that further bit up, and then you've got Murphy and Gordon on either wing. So I think with just that defence, you know, I think will probably sort itself. I think he'll bring Longstaff in if Joe Linton is injured. But I'd like to see a little bit of fluidity and the ability, going back to what I said about Saturday's game, the ability to change in game and change the pattern if we need to. But that will be where my head would go. But I think heart tells me he'll go with pretty much the same formula, and it'll be 4-3-3, and we'll try and hold with what we've got and see can we get them on the break. You can definitely score against them, but I think it'll be a tighter match than we think. And I think if they score first, then the nerves. I just hope that the nerves don't fall in amongst the crowd and with the players, and the heads drop, because it could be a bit of a ripe game. But yeah, that's where I go with it.
Prediction.
1-1.
1-1. Okay, another draw. Magnus, thoughts
Yeah,
about
but
Wednesday?
with regards to changing the team, I'm thinking of 4 changes. I think, I mean, nobody is untouchable after a losing game, and after 2 games lost at home, we really can't allow the third one to happen. Won't accept it. For me, I think maybe if Emil Kraft is completely fit, he didn't do a lot of wrong when he was. So, maybe it's time for him to take a shift instead of Fabian Schär. Sven Botman, I would like to see in the starting lineup for this game. The big question is probably the goalkeeper. I mean, Pope is a good stopper, but Dubravka is a lot better in his feet and distribution. So it's for me, that's the big question mark. And then the front line is auto-picked. We don't really have a lot of sources, so it's just Gordon, Isak, and Murphy for me. Only because I really found those ideas interesting from Martin, but I don't really see Eddie Howe changing up the system too much. Unfortunately, I mean, I'd like to see it a lot more. And then I feel like Lewis Miley has shown me enough to be ahead of everyone else on the packing order. So I would like to see him start instead of Joelinton if he's not fit. So those are the 4 changes I would like to see. And I'm predicting 1-0 victory because, Arsenal should not come to our church and take any points. We have no problems motivating ourselves for a game like that. And it's a win for me. It's not going to be easy, but I don't know if they trained too hard last week, but they seem to lack stamina. And hopefully they can just shake it off and think more about the game, the last game we played against Arsenal rather than last weekend.
Prediction?
Yeah, 1-0 to us.
1-0 to Newcastle. Okay, Jeff.
Don't do predictions; they're always wrong. I think we'll win. I'm quite confident we'll win.
What would you change, Jeff?
Sorry, what would I change? I'd bring Botman in and Longstaff. Joe Linton, as far as we can tell, and if you believe Adam P, Joe Linton's away, being rebuilt in bionically somewhere in London. So yeah, Longstaff. I mean, that's what Eddie will do. Whether he's right or not, it's not a matter. But yeah, Longstaff will come in. I've got confidence in the lad. I mean, in our fan culture, he's a bit undervalued, but it doesn't necessarily affect real value of the player within the club. The way the club treat him is different to the way the fans sort of imagine it. He's not one of our favourites, and we're constantly trying to sell him to everybody. There was a time he was going to Manchester for 20 million about 3 years ago. I seem to remember, but.
Yep, correct. But he is a good luck charm in semi-finals and has the knack of turning up and scoring an important goal. So there is that possibility. But Longstaff
putting it from the right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff. Good stuff. Thank you. You don't do predictions, so we'll move on to Pablo. Pablo.
Jeff's like Beyonce. I don't do predictions. Like, all right, sound. The obvious change for me, I would, like I mentioned earlier, I'd play Botman and Schär, and the reason why I'd go with that pairing, Arsenal to me are a team that pose threats, nominally on the ground, more with their movement, and I think that Schär and Botman have a little bit more ability about them. I'd make that change because I do think Dan's struggling a little bit. Whether he will or not, no idea. The midfield situation. There's no manager really that's going to make wholesale changes before a semi-final of a cup where they're winning. So it's going to be minimal changes for me. I think Eddie will go with Longstaff and look to try and get a 7 out of 10 performance from him. I think it's safety all the way. I think the first game against Arsenal, we were massively under the cosh. It was like the Alamo at times. They were lumping balls all over the shop. I think at one point we played with 5 and 5, for 20 minutes. So I think it's going to be more of the same. If you ask me if we're going to win on Wednesday, I'd say I don't think we're going to win on Wednesday. I think we'll edge through the tie. I don't know why I've got this thing in my head of us being 2-2 at full time and winning it in extra time, but that's just me being romantic. But yeah, I'm hoping that we'll get through the tie, but I'm in no way, shape confident.
Okay, Alan.
I agree with what Pablo says. I think, and Jeff said, I think Longstaff will come in. I want Maley in, but I think Longstaff will come in. And lads, nobody's touched on it. With Byrne, I would have Botman in, because I think the Geordie connection cannot be underestimated, lads. Byrne's a Geordie lad. Longstaff's a Geordie lad. They will be given 150%. Like Jeff said, Longstaff's very much underrated at times. He can let himself down, but that Geordie connection will count a lot in this semi-final. Make no bones about it. I'll walk through brick walls, and if I was in the dressing room before the game, I'd be saying it's nils each, lads. We've got it all to do. Forget about the first leg. Go to it, because I did that at home when we beat them 1-0 up here. So, prediction, I think we'll win 2-1. And I would say, Jeff, do you want to make history, lads? Do you want to, seriously, if you don't, you'll crumble and we'll get beat and also go through. But if you want to make history for this club, you've got to be stand up and be counted. I'd be emphasising that. And there'll be nobody more happier than me to see on Wednesday night and Thursday morning win another cup final.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. George, last word on this to you.
Yeah, well, still Mr. Optimistic. I'm afraid I can't help bleeding black and white. So I think we'll get through. And on the night, I think we'll get through on a 1-0 win. But it'll be hard fought. As to changes, I think the lads have nailed it all. Botman's the obvious choice to bring in. You could get rid of either Shah or Byrne for me, because both on Saturday were dreadful. While I'm saying Murphy was in the papers, Murphy was man of the match, they were also saying that Shah was the duck egg, because papers were giving him 3 and 4 as his best score. So you can take either of them out. It wouldn't matter, because they both were awful on Saturday. Joe Linton, for the last 3 games, has been something of a passenger for me. He's got around the pitch kicking people and got himself booked, but he's done very little else for the team, unfortunately. So even if he was fit, I'm not sure I would be playing him. And if he doesn't play, then the lads are right. Got it right again. Eddie Howe's safety choice would be Sean Longstaff, and I wouldn't be too unhappy about that, because of all the things that everybody said about the Geordie connection, etc. And we do undervalue him. However, if I was pressed, if somebody was pulling me thumbnails out, I would still want to see young Miley involved. We've got a star of the future, and this is the sort of game that he should be really involved in, and could be a revelation in a game like this. So, but Eddie will go safely. I'm interested in your notion about Pope coming in, Steve. I think that's not a bad call, because although you couldn't blame Dubravka for the first goal because it was a wicked deflection, the near post goal for the second one was, you got to say, where was he?
Where was the wall, though?
Yeah, but
where was the wall? There was no wall there.
Anyway, no, so it wouldn't surprise me either if Pope sneaked in, but I wouldn't be too bothered either if it didn't happen. So I think we'll get a 1-0 win, hard fought, and probably, hopefully, when I get home, I'll be able to speak. Is what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I'm going to go for a Newcastle defeat. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Arsenal, which will see Newcastle go to Wembley. They'll go to Wembley on goals that they scored away from home. But I do think they'll put up a fight. I think Arsenal will score early, and I do think that Newcastle will be up against it, and it's going to be a nerve-wracking night. But I think that we will get a goal. It'll be an unsung hero.
Steve, we've got one advantage. We're using a different ball the day on Wednesday night.
Very true, very true. I do want to finish just by saying thank you to those NUFC Matters regulars who turned up at the Irish Centre to see Chris Argyris's parents. Of course, he was a much-loved member of the Fans Forum back in lockdown, and his parents came over to see us Dave Havery was the man who sorted it all out, who's kept in touch with his parents all the way through since that tragic day that we lost Chris through COVID. And we've also had the anniversaries of Kenny Ranson and another who was another viewer. Who he's a Patreon member. He was part of our inner circle, if you like, on this podcast, and somebody who really got behind everything that we did. And from my perspective, another unsung hero in the chat, somebody who I know is sadly missed by his family, and who everybody I think down in South Shields went along to a big night down in South Shields to celebrate his life. I think they did it in aid of charity as well. I saw some footage over the course of the last few days on social media, and just to say that he is not forgotten. And neither is Steve Wilkinson. Again, we lost him around about the same time. Again, somebody who came onto the fans forum, but was also a part of Geordie's Here, Geordie's There, which we do on a Wednesday as well. But nobody's ever forgotten on this channel. We've also got Flyboy Stu, who used to be in the chat as well, who used to say Bruce out, who was a big part of it as well. So lots of people who we always like to remember in different ways, but it was lovely to see Chris's family. So thank you to everybody who made the effort to go and see them at the weekend.
And great to see them and remind people that they're still supporting the food bank from America, which is brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Great stuff. Thanks to everybody who watched tonight. It's a pre-record tomorrow, 6 o'clock, Talk of the Tune. Wednesday, I am going to try and cram in a show before I go to the match with our good friend Stu Penman. A little pre-match chat with Stu. Thursday night, Gibbo and me will be on at 6 o'clock live, and the Amigos will be live on Friday at 5 o'clock. Look forward to seeing you all then. Take care. Thanks, lads.
Bye.
See you, lads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. A big thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Find them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email them at beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. You can find them at their website, media-arts.co.uk. If you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and your other podcast providers. If you want to help support the channel, hit the thumb up, which is the like button. Click share to share to your other social medias. Click join to join the channel. And click the subscribe button. We've also got links in our description for buy us a coffee and to be a Patreon member. Some events coming up. An afternoon with Sir Les Ferdinand, 6th of April, 12 till 4. Tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. No Covers takes place at the Clooney, Lilac Lane, Ryder and the Chris Norris Band. Tickets from theclooney.com or by telephone in 0191 230 4474. An evening with Steve Howie and Steve Watson, hosted by Joe Allen, takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 27th of June. Tickets for that are from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on the 23rd of January 2026. Box office 0844 246 1000 or website Tyne Theatre and Opera House
nufcmatterspodcast.tv. An Evening with Bad Manners takes place on Friday the 30th of January 2026 and tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainers 1992 to 1997 Kevin Keegan's Legacy available from newcastlelegends.com.